Good morning. I'd like to call the October 15th Committee of Adjustment meeting to order. And I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. And before we start, I'm going to turn it over to Bryce Sharp to make an introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and happy Thanksgiving, members of committee, and good morning. I just wanted to introduce our new Director of Development Services and Environmental Sustainability, Jennifer Huff. Jennifer is joining us formally from the municipality of Strathroy, Caradoc as the Director of Building, Bylaw and Planning. We're very pleased that Jennifer chose to join us here at the Township of Muskoka Lakes, and with her extensive experience, we're really looking forward to working with her. So I just wanted to introduce her to Committee of Adjustment. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much and welcome. And we'll have the adoption of the agenda. Moved by Member Bridgman, seconded by Member Stokes. Be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment agenda dated October 15th, 2024 be adopted. All those in favor? Thank you. And the second thing will be the adoption. Oh, are there any conflict of interest? Your mic on, please.
Conflict with respect to file A6124. As I recused myself in the last meeting, I'll recuse myself again this meeting.
Thank you. Now. Thanks. Moved by Member Brown, second by Member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment minutes dated September 9th, 2024 be adopted and approved as circulated. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. And we'll call the first applicant. Oh, yes, sorry. Trying to get finished the meeting.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It is required that I make a few statements, then I will explain the hearing procedures. This electronic hearing is being held in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act. The members of the Commission, Ruth Ann Brown, Lisa Grogan Green, and Sean Stokes. I can confirm we have quorum and that senior staff and planning staff are present. Public input on this October 15th agenda was invited at the following email address, planning@muskokalakes.ca. Now I will explain the hearing process. The planner will provide an explanation and purpose of the application, the date the notice was circulated, and planning staff's comments. All internal and external submissions have been provided to committee members by Friday, October 11th at 12 p.m. The planner will present any submissions received after this date. The committee will hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent if they wish to add any information or to substantiate their proposal. Please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. The committee will hear from those in support of the application and those in opposition to the application. Again, please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes unless otherwise permitted by the committee. If you are here to speak on an application electronically, please wait until after the planner presents the relevant application to raise your hand in Zoom. If you are here to speak on an application in person, when asked, please raise your hand, and when you are recognized by the chair, please approach the podium, turn on the microphone, and remain at the podium while you state your comments for recording purposes. The committee will hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent to respond to any questions or concerns raised. The committee will then have the opportunity to ask questions, have a debate on the application, and make a decision based on the information presented at the hearing. Please note that the effect of written and oral submissions on decisions for consent and minor variances, along with the reasons for minor variance decisions, are both required under the Planning Act, and motions are pre-populated with standard wording. However, the committee may decide to add reasons and/or effects to the standard wording after voting on a decision. Motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting and are automatically written in the positive to assist in completing decisions as opposed to writing out each resolution. This does not in any way mean an application is going to be approved. When it is time to vote, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded. This is not considered a recorded vote. It must be noted the chair has a vote on each application and can participate in the discussion. There is a 20-day appeal period from the date of the decision. Building permits are not available until after the appeal period and if no appeals are received. Lastly, please take down the pink notice signs that were posted on your property to advertise today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bork. Now, our first application is B 3324 ML LLANLLAR Holdings Incorporated, and that is Ms. Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The first application to be heard is consent application B 3324 NL in the name of LLANLLAR Holdings Corporation. The retained lot is known municipally as 1038 Bayview Avenue. I would direct committee's attention to the consent sketch on page 39 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to recreate two lots that have unintentionally merged. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 18 days in advance of this meeting, and 5 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, Tim Sopko, the township's manager at Public Works, planning staff from the District of Muskoka, and staff from Hydro One, all stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Doug Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, stating the calculated fire response time and that the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual should be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to the standard conditions of consent, and that the owner enter into a consent agreement with the township, which will contain provisions regarding a private on-site sewage disposal system on the severed lot. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair Edwards. Good morning, committee. My name is Ryan Allen, professional planner with Planscape, 104 Kimberley Ave, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L1Z8. I'm here today assisting LLANLLAR Holdings with the severance application, and LLANLLAR Holdings is in the ownership of Catherine Miller. The subject lands are at 1038 Bayview Ave in Windermere. It's a bit of an interesting application. I think for the longest time, everyone thought that these were 2 separate lots. During a recent ownership change, however, it was discovered back in 1996 that the lots merged on title related to the closure of a shore road allowance. So we're here today to just recreate the lots that we thought existed for all that time. The previous zoning bylaw amendment that was approved earlier this year is not impacted by this consent application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here to speak in support of this application? Anyone against this application? Are there questions from the members? Moved by member Stokes, second by member Bridgman. Be it resolved that consent application B 3324 ML LLANLLAR Holdings Incorporation be approved with this subject to the following conditions. 1, that a registrable description deed of the separate lot and any required right-of-ways be submitted to the township along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the proposed severed and retained lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal. that any problems identified with the existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. And 3, that the owner enter into a consent agreement with the township pursuant to section 5123 of the Planning Act. Said agreement shall be registered against the title of the lands and it contain provisions to the satisfaction of the township, whereas the owner agrees. 1, to use soils that have been demonstrated ability and effect to retain phosphorus or equivalent septic abatement technologies, which may include the use of soils with phosphorus controls over the long term for a private on-site sewage disposal system on the severed lot. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you, committee. Hopefully some of this August weather continues.
Thank you. And the next application is B 3424, and that's Ms. Beamish again.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is consent application B 3424 ML in the name of RODIE and GONZALEZ. The retained lot is known municipally as 30 Bailey Street. I would direct committee's attention to the consent sketch on page 56 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to grant an easement for an existing water line in favor of an abutting property. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 20 days in advance of this meeting, and 5 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, Tim Sopko, the township's manager of public works, planning staff from the District of Muskoka, and staff from Hydro One, all stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Doug Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, stating no concerns with the application and that the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual should be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to the standard conditions of consent, and that confirmation be received that no further easements in favor of the benefiting lot are required for the water line. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? Yes.
Can you hear me? My name is Melissa Cope. I'm a lawyer for the owner of the benefiting lands, Mrs. Fraser, and have a joint retainer with the servient landowners. My office is located at 61 Joseph Street, Port Carling, P0B1J0. And I know that Ms. Fraser is not able to come today, so I'm just here to answer questions regarding the application. And I think a little bit of history about this file and why we're here today. And we have some concerns about the condition number 2 and how we would fulfill it, or who would provide confirmation that no additional easements are going to be required. So Mrs. Fraser had previously had a hearing in December of 2022 to have her water line going down the neighbor's driveway at different neighbors. So on Bailey Street, there is lots of 2-tier development where there's long driveways and water lines. So she wanted to confirm the location of her water line down a neighbor's driveway. We did the application, decision was done, and after the decision was issued, we got notice that the district had additional comments saying that the line was a shared line and that they required each house to have its own separate connection and water line from the district list, and where the existing line or original hookup to the district line at the road was located. And it appears to be located at the entrance of her driveway that she uses to access her property, and not at this other driveway where the line was existing. So at some point, something happened, and where the original line was, it got hooked up and there was a shared line between 2 houses. We don't really know when this happened. So to satisfy the district that each house have their own line from a district connection, the research we did was to do this. So it's been since 2022 that we've been talking with the district about how to do this without digging up the neighbor's driveway and putting a line and possibly disturbing the existing line for, I think, 28 Bailey. So it's a little bit concern for the property owner. The question we have about what additional easements might be required is there is a section of the driveway that this line will go down that is in the name of a deceased individual who's held title since 1924 and has been deceased since the 50s. So we are not able to reasonably get an easement from Miss Jessie Croucher. The little piece of the driveway which shows on the sketch as having a right-of-way on in favor of this property. We can't get an easement for this utility to go down that section because she's been deceased since the 1950s. That property has a PIN number, so I can look up title, and that's what it says, the deeds from 1924 that shows her ownership. But it doesn't have a roll number. It's not separately a tax. And if I look on GeoHub, it doesn't have its own like little spot. It looks like it's part of the road. So it doesn't have a roll number. We can't get an easement from her. It would require either very extensive court orders to do that, which is very costly. We had talked about this with the district before we put this application forward, and the neighbors of the RODIE GONZALEZ were agreeable, and it's the driveway that's beside their house. And we can get their permission for their half of the driveway, which is what we're here to do. And Miss Margot Fraser and the RODIE GONZALEZ are the only people that use this driveway. So we had discussed this with the district before the application. I don't think the district gave any specific comments about this kind of history or what's going on, but I'm concerned that the condition is we might get additional easements because we can't. This is the easement that we can get to put the water line where the district has said the hookup is at the road. And at some point there was a line there, and there might be a line there. We don't know till we dig it up, and we're not doing that until we do all this. So Ms. Fraser's not here. I'd either like some clarity about what the second condition is, who's would need to confirm this.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and good morning, Ms. Cope. Thanks for that explanation. I think we were just a little confused as to why an easement wasn't proposed from the road to the portion that you're proposing an easement over, or whether there was already an easement existing, in which case it wouldn't make sense then to grant an easement over that portion. We were thinking it was likely the latter, that there was an existing easement, and clearing the condition would just be as simple as, you know,
Okay.
you providing us with confirmation that an easement existed. So that's really what the condition was about.
Yeah, so
Through you, Chair.
I can confirm there's no easement because we've looked. There is a right of way, so they have the access right of way to use that driveway. That's recorded on title, and it's been on title. I can't quite tell from what happened, but I wonder if at one point this road was classified as a right of way, and when they sold the remainder of their piece, Jessie Croucher, it was not put in the legal description and just orphaned there since decades and decades at this point. I might be able to register something on title that says, you know, we claim an easement right down this driveway through a notice, but the land registrar doesn't have to accept registration of a notice like that. So I don't want to promise that we would be able to go get a court order and try to locate relatives that don't benefit at all to try to help fix this issue. Would be very, very costly for what this is, when we've been told by district that's where the original hookup and line is at the road and has likely been there for decades. So that's what I
Okay,
can
thank
tell
you
you.
very much. I'm just going to take a 2-minute speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? There are questions from the members. Yes,
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I'm just curious more than anything else, and I think we can waive the condition per Mr. Sharp. You're just going to go ahead then? I don't, what happens with this missing piece? Can you complete everything without that? I'm just curious.
So we told the district about this before putting this application in, and they said, oh, if the neighbor at 30 Bailey was agreeable and it's the driveway that's kind of there, that we should get that easement from them and proceed. So that's why we put the application in to proceed. We told them this is what it is, this is what I can, and this is what I can't do. We had looked in the municipal act about putting utilities down shared driveways. So this is a shared driveway used by the Gonzalez RODIEs. They can use it to get the back of their property. Our client can get to her property. They have the rights of way on it or own it. But the district was aware when we put this application that that's what we could and could not do. So they seemed okay to allow to proceed. But I know it's a strange situation. I know Bailey Street has kind of unique two-tiered development historically. I don't know why it became a shared line at some point and the owner doesn't really know. It was discovered when someone went to turn off their water and used a different plumber and they turned off the wrong house's water. So we're just trying to get an easement so that there's an easement for the water line the best that we can manage without disturbing the other neighbor's driveway or possibly hurting the line that's currently shared, because we wouldn't want to do that, obviously. So that's why we're here.
So good luck.
Yeah, I know.
okay, yes, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps a question for Ms. Cope. I think just to give staff a bit of clarity with respect to this matter. I think one of the reasons that staff had recommended the condition, is there any concern about if the municipality grants the consent in this case, whether there, if there was a concern about title in the future or if title is contested? How would that impact things in the future? And I guess also just sticking out in my mind, what if the water line needs to get fixed over the portion where there's no easement?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the township isn't granting an easement over the Jesse Croucher land. So the easement that you're allowing is confirmed that we can put it over the Gonzalez RODIE lands, who are the abutting owners. So the permission there, we're not getting an easement. I think it would be the districts who've said that, yes, we can proceed and put it there. Also, the fact that that's where their hookup is and has been since whenever the water line first went in there. So these lands are previously registry lands. So if that line has been in there since it was installed, the period for a prescriptive claim likely for that land has crystallized in terms of where the original line would be my argument, which is what I would do a notice on title is. I just can't do any easement grantings without a person, because it can't be one-sided. I need a person on the other side. So I don't think it would be the district hook up and stuff, and they're the ones that said to proceed. Yeah.
Just maybe one other question, just to solidify things in my mind. If it came to it, I believe the benefiting landowner could gain water from the river if it absolutely was necessary, like up through a water line.
I think these properties originally got water from the river.
Okay.
I think I'm not sure when the district line went in down Bailey Street. I know I looked at this morning that the sewer line went in probably mid-70s because I was looking at the plan. So possibly as long as that for the water and sewer to go down Bailey Street in Port Carling, and this property is subject to the main sewer line that cuts through, so they had to grant that to allow part of that system to even exist. So it's been a long time. I just don't know the exact dates, and I don't know why, when it was installed originally, why all these properties didn't have the easements granted for the private line, because Bailey Street is full of the two-tiered, the waterfront, and then the properties right on the road there. So it might not be a unique situation. I think it's just come up because the property owner wanted to ensure that if and or she goes to sell the property, she can say, this is what I know, this is where my line is, this is where easements are. Part of the application that was approved in December of 2022 was for a sub pump at the water as well, that resulted when we had the very high, was it 2018, 2019 flooding. So they had done stuff for the basement and it was at the water. I know these neighbors are all very close. I think technically we could still act until December on the water line that we had asked for originally down the other neighbor's driveway. The issue is district's comments were, we need you to put in a second line, and we wouldn't want to cut up that neighbor's driveway when she can just do it down the driveway she has rights of way on and won't affect the neighbors and won't possibly affect someone else's water line and hookup. So that's kind of why this seemed the best solution, and no one is harmed by it in terms of the location and the person that owns a property being very long deceased. Now, I know the township this probably doesn't have a roll number, so tax probably hasn't been paid on the Jesse Croucher property since 1950 something. There's steps the township can take possibly, but that could take years. It could be considered township land from a tax sale eventually, which would make sense. One of these neighbors buy it. But that's not something that can happen immediately or right now, but possibly something the township could look into in terms of dealing with who owns it.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yes.
What do we do with the condition then? She was suggesting that it be removed or something. Should we do that?
Mr. Sharp?
Thank you. It sounds like a sticky situation, to say the least. I don't think it's something that's going to be easily resolved. I would look to Director Huff if she has any comments or concerns, but certainly one option would be to strike the condition from committee's resolution. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you to the committee. I certainly echo some of the manager's cautions, I think I could say. And, you know, if the water line were to break, or if that portion of the property was contested, but also hearing from Ms. Cope that there are some real challenges in dealing with a property with a deceased owner for numerous years. So knowing that there is an alternative, that they can access water from the lake, does appear to provide some relief that if this water line does in the future become problematic, there is a recourse for them to access it via the lake. So I would leave those comments to the committee. I can see both ways, but I am left with a little bit of comfort knowing that they do have access to the lake to provide for water if anything else goes sideways.
I don't.
Yes.
So I'm not sure I understand whether you're for removing the condition or keeping it. So we can clarify.
Sorry, to be plain, I think, yes, I could recommend removing the condition, knowing that they do have access to the lake water.
And how does the rest of the committee feel? Yes?
Yeah, if there's no downside really to removing it, I would be in favor of that.
Okay. So I would say taking water from the river is a very poor alternative. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay. Moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Brown, be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 3424 ML, RODIE and GONZALEZ, provided the following conditions are satisfactory registrable description deed of the severed lot easement be submitted to the township along with a registered copy of the right of way. All those in favor? That's carried. The next application is A 6124, FORTIN and MACCALLUM. And that is Ms. Mace. Yep.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 6124 in the name of FORTIN and MACCALLUM. This application is returning. It was adjourned by committee in September to provide time for the application to be recirculated owing to a technological error within the township circulation. The subject lands are known municipally as 13 Stephen Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 70 of the agenda package. The purpose of the application is to relocate an existing land-based dwelling, construct a dock addition, and construct a one-story addition with a rooftop sundeck to a two-story boathouse containing an upper-level dwelling. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was recirculated 33 days in advance of this meeting, and one comment from the applicant has been received since the recirculation of the notice. The applicants provided a letter in response to a letter submitted to Committee of Adjustment by Sandra Morris and Daniel Foucher, providing feedback on concerns raised and providing information about efforts taken to engage with neighbors. Staff have been made aware after the time of report writing that the applicants reached out to the chiefs of the Wata Mohawks and Chippewas of Rama separately on September 11th with pictures, clarifications from the planning report, and an offer for a site visit to the property. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. As noted in the staff report, in the absence of comments from First Nations groups, staff would recommend that the application be further adjourned to Chippewas of Rama and Wata Mohawks and to understand their concerns, if any. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much, Hamish. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? Okay, come forward.
Good morning. My name is Alistair McCallum. My wife and I own Stephen Road, and our postal code is P0B1J0. We are the applicant for this minor variance. We did not attend the meeting on September. We would have attended in person if we had known there was going to be comment section, and we would have tried to provide answers to questions from our neighbors and the committee at that time. We agree with some of our neighbors that the original notice period was not sufficient, but we were not responsible for that, and we followed the township's requests. We also found the original planning report somewhat confusing, considering we were only asking to extend our boathouse slips by 10 feet to cover our normal size boats, and that all the dwellings and setbacks already exist. Once we became aware of the opposition letters, we promptly responded to the concerns in their letters, provided clarifications, sent pictures, and offered site visits to each of the people who provided opposition letters. We tracked down emails and emailed Sandra Morris on September 7th, Chris Stokes on September 7th, Deborah Stokes on September 8th, Sue Varga on September 8th, Chief Ted Williams of the Rama on September 11th, and Chief Philip Franks of the Wata on September 11th. We provided Sandra Morris and her husband Daniel with a site visit on September 8th, as well as Deborah Stokes on October 6th. We believe these site visits helped our neighbors better understand our request. To reiterate, on September 11th, we emailed Chief Ted Williams of the Rama and Chief Philip Frank with pictures and offers for a site visit on multiple days and times. We did not hear back from the two chiefs. We're happy to answer any questions from our neighbors and the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? No? Okay, any questions from the committee?
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I would like to address the staff's proposal that this be deferred. I've done a lot of thinking about this over the weekend, so I'm having, let me tell you what I'm thinking. This is a quasi legal court. Everybody is treated equally here. So what I'm struggling with is the deferral made sense, no question about that. But we have now had the opportunity to have those chiefs respond. I believe that normally our staff would not reach out the way they have reached out to these two chiefs to ensure that they got the information. Our applicant has done that to ensure that they nothing. So in the normal course of our proceedings, and Mr. Sharp, maybe you can answer that. I don't recall us ever doing that before from the township, making a special effort to make sure that somebody's included. Perhaps we have, but the fact that there has been no response says to me that there are no concerns. And I have concerns about setting a precedent of once again delaying and trying to contact a specific group. My other comment would be that delays this application to the detriment of the applicant, and it's already been delayed. To have you help me understand why we're delaying this one more time, and it may be you, Mr. Sharp, who wants to answer that. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. And I just wanted to acknowledge the applicant's attempts and action and reaching out to the neighbors and the First Nations. I think that's excellent. So I just wanted to start with that. But I would also note that a couple of things. I think in the initial correspondence from Chief Franks, he had advised that he could not arrange to have a delegation at the hearing given the short notice, which to me may imply that he was hoping to have some type of delegation at a follow-up meeting. Staff have reached out to both chiefs in advance to participate. We hadn't heard back. I would note that First Nations are a quote unquote public body under the Planning Act, and as well minor variance applications. And it just seemed, I think we're just approaching with some caution because, for example, if we're the district, if the district had advised that they perhaps wanted to participate or had, an interest in participating, I think likely we would defer until we had heard from them. So I would just put that out there. The other thing I would note, just based on my own experience working with First Nations in the past, they don't always have the staff resources to participate in these processes as quickly as the process sort of unravels or plays out. So I think, again, staff's just proceeding with a bit of caution, giving the First Nations a little bit of extra time to digest the information that's been submitted with respect to these applications and giving them some extra time just to participate. But certainly if committee wants to proceed without hearing from the First Nations or without giving them a little bit of extra time to do so.
Are there any other questions or comments? Yes.
I actually disagree with Member Bridgman because I do feel that the Chippewas and they actually occupied the whole river at one time, and I think they deserve the respect to wait. If they are short on resources, I'd like to hear more from them because I think that they did write a letter for the first meeting. And yeah, I personally think there should be a deferral. I'd rather wait, and I think for the next meeting.
That's fine. What I'm thinking, and I heard Mr. Sharp there, that if we were to pass this and there was opposition from the First Nations, it could be appealed, which would drag it on for about a year. But on the other hand, and that you'd like to get started with it, but I guess I would ask the applicants, what would you prefer? Would you like to take a chance on it and that, or have it appealed and be hung up for probably a year? And now what's the timetable now for the land tribunal? Approximately.
Through you, Chair Edwards, I don't think there's any specific calendar. All I can say is that once appeals are filed with the tribunal, they seem to be getting back to us rather quickly.
Okay,
But you're certainly right. Once an appeal is filed, it can delay the process. Thank you.
okay, thank you. And I'll let Member Bridgman say something as well.
And just a quick comment, I understand what you're saying, but I think it would be fair, and perhaps this will play into how you respond. Perhaps we could let them know that we need an answer by the next, at least a response. I mean, my concern was there was no response. Had there been a response, we need more time, there would have been no issue. So perhaps we can explain to them that we need a response if in fact you want it delayed. If you don't want it delayed, it's quite true. They have the ability to challenge it going forward.
So I'm not an expert on this at all. But Zoe, could you just go to the picture of the boathouse just so everyone knows what we're actually talking about?
Yeah, we can
possible?
do that. We are aware of what you're talking about. What
Okay,
we're doing is a technicality that it could hold you up. And that if we were to approve it, and then word come through that they were going to appeal it.
Right.
And then
So,
you've got all the costs of going through an appeal. What I'm giving the option is if you can just wait a month and we'll make sure that we get an answer because we will contact them.
okay, we've tried to contact them. Everyone else we contacted responded,
I realize
and we
that.
gave them a tour. We sent them 6 or 7 pictures of what we were trying to do, explanations as to all the comments that we had received with answers. I mean, we can delay it. We've already delayed it once so they've had, at least a month. I want to be respectful of our neighbors as well. They're important to us as well. So I guess we can defer that if that's a recommendation from the committee. It's just we incur more costs. It takes more time to try and satisfy all our neighbors, including the chiefs. We don't think this has ever been asked of any of our neighbors or anyone on the Indian River, which, remember, we just happen to be the closest to the reserve, but all the land originally was owned or governed by the native indigenous peoples. So if you're asking this to us, you should be asking it to everyone in this whole region. So anyway, to answer your question, we're happy to defer this.
I think it's wise because it could complicate things later on and that, but I will ask Mr. Sharp if somebody can contact both chiefs to make sure that that we get a reply one way or the other, and that because I think it's only fair to you, and that we get an answer for the next meeting and we'll bring it back if that's what committee would like. But I would like to get it deferred to make sure I don't want anything coming up that it costs you more time than 1 month at this time.
Yeah, if that's recommendation of the committee and the planners, we're happy to abide by that. I mean, at the end of the day, we want happy neighbors. We want to be respectful of our neighbors. And so if they need more time.
And that deferral? Okay.
They have. Wait, if we don't get a response, we're going to interpret that.
We're going through that. Thank you very much. And I do apologize, but we will defer this for 1 month, but we will get an answer one way or the other. Thank you. A 7124, and that is Ms. Spice.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variant of STAJIC. The subject lands are known municipally as 1061 Camel Lake Extension Road, Unit number 16. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plans on page 100 of the agenda package. The applicants propose to recognize an as-built dwelling addition. Please note that the Township's Committee of Adjustment in July of 2019, granting the variances necessary for a covered entryway and ramp. The applicants have since enclosed the approved covered entry, small dwelling addition on the northwest corner of the dwelling. As such, they have submitted a new application to recognize these as-built changes. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, stating no objection. Comments were also received from Nick Snyder, approved that a building permit or building permit amendment will be required with the associated as constructed fees as applicable. And lastly, comments were received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, noting the calculated fire response time is 18 minutes and 41 seconds, which is outside of the NFPA rural response time objective of 14 minutes. And as such, it is prudent to subject developments to additional design requirements beyond the minimum in the building code. As construction will be occurring on the property, pre-planning with the fire department concerning fire risks is encouraged. And it is also recommended that the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time, but are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? No? Is there anyone wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Okay. Other questions from the members? Yes.
I guess there's nobody to ask this question of, but it seems to me that they knowingly went ahead and enclosed it and made it living space without permission to do that. That's really what we're dealing with, right?
I believe that's what we're dealing with, and I will ask the planners, was there a building permit taken out for this?
So it's my understanding that the applicants had constructed it this way and they were under the assumption they were doing it within what was previously approved. But it was found, for what was previously approved. And it was found during the time of a building inspection that they had not constructed it in accordance with their previously approved variance, and they were told they had to get further relief.
Okay, and I guess I can ask one more question. Was there a contractor involved or they do it themselves?
I'm unsure.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Moved by member Brown, second by member Stokes, be it resolved that the minor variance application A 7124 STAJIC to recognize an as-built dwelling addition is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a minor interior side lot setback of 4 feet at the closest point for a dwelling of 1,222 square feet, 8.5% over the area of the entire lot. These variances are granted and are shown on a plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I agree completely with staff on this. This is minor in terms of the 4 planning principles, and if it was ever appealed, I'm sure the township would lose. So that's why I'm going to vote for it.
Right. Thank you very much. Any other comments? All those in favor? That's carried. And the next one is A 7224, and that's Ms. Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 7224 in the name of Jewett. The subject lands are known municipally as 6 Island Shaw and 3120 of the agenda package. The purpose of the application is to construct a sun deck addition. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, and Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, noting the calculated fire response time and recommending that the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. The proposed variance is summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wish to speak on this? Yes.
Good morning,
ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee and township staff. My name is Sam Soya and I am a land use planner with Tulloch Engineering at 80 Main Street West in Huntsville, P1H 1W9. It has been a little while since last having the pleasure of addressing the township's committee. It's great to see some familiar faces. I am here this morning as the agent for the property owner, Mr. Jewett. This application has been submitted to request relief from the front yard setback for a proposed sun deck. This sun deck is to be an extension to an otherwise compliant sun deck and is to be attached to an existing recently redeveloped dwelling. Thank you to staff for your review of the application, and I would agree with the analysis and conclusions as set out by staff in their report. As is detailed in my planning report, in particular due to the buffering provided by the existing forest vegetative buffer, and also due to the positioning of the sun deck behind the boathouse, is my opinion that the proposal satisfies the 4 tests of a minor variance application, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soya. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Questions for the members? No? Moved by member Stokes, second by member Grogan Green, be it resolved that minor variance application A 7224 Jewett to construct a sun deck addition is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to remit a minimum lot front yard setback of 28.5 feet at the closest point for a sun deck. This variance is granted as shown on a plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. At this time, would anyone like to come for a break before we start again? Yes? Okay, take a 10-minute comfort break. Okay. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. And the next application is A 7424, and that's Ms. Beamish. I apologize, it's A 7324, Raymond Cocher.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 7324 in the name of Raymond and Gorder. The subject lands are known municipally as Silver Island 1 Island Silver. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 155 of the agenda package. The purpose of the application is to demolish existing docks and a single-story boathouse and to construct a dock and a two-story boathouse with an upper-level sleeping cabin on a lot with less than 300 feet of frontage. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance of this meeting, and 13 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, and Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, noting the calculated fire response time and recommending that the Fire Smart Homeowner's Manual be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Letters of support were also received from area residents Jeff Raymond, Gord Ryder, Heather Ferrier, Heather Mighton, Jane Ferrier, Janet Nixon, Rosemary Leith, Susan Ferrier-Baker, and Andrew Ryder, stating no objections to the application. A letter of support was also received from Jane Ferrier, a property owner on Silver Island, after the circulation of comments to committee, stating no objection to the application. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to the following: that a site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title to address the development of a two-story boathouse within a floodplain and access. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant's agent here wish to speak on this?
Thank you for hearing this, committee members. Thank you for hearing this application.
Oh, just 1 second. I'll just put the mic on for you.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Rachel Kelleby. I'm here on behalf of my client, Marilyn Raymond, to do this boathouse. I'm here just to answer any questions you might have. And also, I have one additional item. This is the cottage that was recently built, so this is old school, and we want to do this boathouse in keeping with the historical nature of Muskoka. Any questions?
Thank you very much then. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak? Oh.
Sorry, can we get your address for the record and can we keep that photograph?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. My address is 297 Riverside Drive, Toronto, M6S 4B1.
Thank you.
And I'll just pass this.
And there's no one else to speak in support or no, or objection. Okay, questions from the members? Moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Bridgman, be it resolved that minor variance application A 7324 Raymond Cocher to construct a new dock and a two-story boathouse is hereby approved, with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a two-story boathouse on a lot with 293 feet of frontage in accordance with zoning provision for a two-story boathouse on a lot with 300 feet of frontage. And 2, to permit a maximum cumulative dock width of 79.5 feet. These variances are granted as shown on a plan attached to the notice of decision and are subject to the following condition. 1, that a site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title to address the development of a two-story boathouse within a floodplain and access. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. And the next application is A 7424 Brown. And that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Sorry for the technological difficulties. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A7424 in the name of Brown. The subject lands are known municipally as 1218 Hamels Point Road. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 175 of the agenda package. Next slide, please. The purpose and effect of the application is to recognize 2 as-built boat lifts / dock additions with property. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Operations. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, stating that the calculated fire response time is for the fire department in the last 36 months and a travel distance of 5.4 kilometers from the fire station. This response time is outside of the NFPA rural response time objective of 14 minutes. When the response time is out of the rural response time objective, it is prudent to subject developments to additional design requirements beyond the minimum in the building code. The fire smart influence wildfire spread. Next slide, please. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to help assist committee with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the applicant's agent here wishes to speak?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Adam Brown. I'm the lawyer for the applicant, who happens to be my wife on this cottage property. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I wanted to just point out, we did file some slides that could be helpful just understanding the application, although I think planning staff did a great job in showing. So beside the dock, we've provided slides. If you would like to review them, I can have them posted up quickly. I think I sent them into the committee, and it will show you that what we have there is virtually identical to many other cottages and boathouses which have lifts for either boats or Sea-Doos right beside their docks. Ours happen to be parallel, which is even less visible. And then go to the next slide. An old slide of the boathouse. The next one, I don't have one of those. That's the 2 variances. That's okay. The next one just shows side parallel to. And if you go to the next slide, it'll show you the boathouse we actually moved in a way that it was closer to the shore, which we were asked to do. It was a legal non-conforming boathouse previously. We altered it and where the lifts are. And if I go to the next one, and this shows you what you've seen. The 2 lifts are parallel, virtually invisible, and in the least visible spot that you could place those lifts. Next one. Covers boat lifts, Sea-Doo lifts on the lake within literally a 1 to 2 minute boat ride in the same bays outside the bay. And if you just keep going through these, it's not an unusual situation. And it leads to, I guess, the conclusion in my application is clearly minor. And the other thing I can tell you, I happen to be a zoning lawyer, and we had no idea that there was a different definition of cumulative width versus dock width. And had we known that when we went through the site-specific zoning, I would have asked that definition be included. There was previously lifts for Sea-Doos before in a different form than what we have. We had no clue that this wasn't permitted. And so we paid the double fee. So one of the requests I made, I would ask that you approve the variances that have been sought and support the recommendations of staff. We also would ask if there's a possibility for at least a refund of we paid the double fee. I actually wrote in our letter that we didn't think the variance would even be required based on the site-specific zoning. But having said that, we cooperated with staff, and I understand there's at least a processing cost to the municipality, which is why I only asked for the additional cost refund, and I make that request and understand you have lots of these applications to deal with, but I did want to make that request, and thank you.
We need your address and postal code.
It's 40 Holly Street, Suite 404, M4S 3C3, and that's Toronto.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application? Other questions from the members?
To comment on, I think it's fairly clear, and in the staff report that was provided to the committee, has a very clear definition of what a dock is and what the additions to the dock are. And I don't, if that or neglects to look at it or read it properly, I don't really see that as being the township's issue. And I take, I take issue with with that, in that we are being asked, and I also take issue with respect to the request for refund of fees, because I don't really see this as being the township's problem. I think it's the property owner's responsibility.
Right, thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Mr. Brown, I know in terms of the lifts being part of the frontage coverage, that was debated, I know, last council, and I think, Mr. Sharp, it would be really good to put that into our our discussions on the comprehensive zoning bylaw review, just to see where we end up on that. But at the time, it is not, as you found out, it's that way. So have you covered one of your slips for interior?
We have,
I'm just curious.
Yeah, we have both slips.
So, yeah,
That's
so, and I do understand this is pretty minor compared to the ones that are perpendicular to a dock. It is still more than what we have, but I think it's minor. I'm agreeing with Member Stokes. We have many people here who didn't understand the bylaws and have had to pay the double fee.
Understood.
And I think that.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
If anyone was in support or opposition.
Yes, I did, and we said there was no. Moved by Member Bridgman, second by Member Stokes, be it resolved that minor variance E 7424 Brown to recognize an as-built boat lift / dock additions is hereby approved. The following variance being granted: 1, to permit a maximum committed and as-built boat lift / dock additions. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A7524 in the name of Weber. The subject lands are known municipally as 6 Darling Drive. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 196 of the agenda package. The purpose of the application is to recognize an as-built sun deck. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of this meeting, and 4 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating that if approved, a building permit is required to legalize the deck, and surcharges and fees will be applied accordingly. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, noting the calculated fire response time and recommending pre-consultation with the fire department, and that the Fire Smart Homeowner's Manual be consulted. A letter of objection was also received from Daniel Borenstein after the circulation of comments from committee. He has requested that the letter be read in full. This can be done at the request of committee, or staff have prepared a brief summary of the concerns outlined in the letter. Let's look to you for direction on that.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to hear it in full if that's what the letter writer requested. How long is it? It's not like 20 pages.
It's 9 pages, but the font is quite large.
Sorry, what was that?
It's 9 pages, but the font is quite large. So
I'll stand down for rest of the committee. Just wants to hear the summary then, but
That, okay. You can just highlight it, please.
sorry, the summary or the full letter?
Just the summary, just a quick summary is obviously posed.
1 second. Let's share my screen. Okay. Okay, so the letter outlined concerns with the distance of the deck from the high water mark of Silver Lake, the potential removal and destruction of vegetation that may have occurred to construct the sun deck, concerns that the sun deck was constructed without proper approval, concerns with the impact of the sun deck on the health of Silver Lake and species at risk, partially as a result of removal of vegetation, and concerns that the sun deck does not align with the township's policy. The proposed variance is summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title along with securities for the retention of existing vegetation and plantings. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. Does that satisfy you?
Not really. That was a pretty, I mean, if it's a 9-page letter and he has all those issues, I don't really think, I don't know if anyone else agrees with me, but.
Let's read
that.
Okay, read it then, please.
I'll just note that a section of the full submission has been redacted as it does not follow the township's public code of conduct policy. Dear committee members, the property owners of 6 Darling Drive built a deck 16 feet too close to the water's edge. The survey submitted notes the measurements at present water's edge, not high water mark, the measurement needed by the bylaw. It appears that many mature trees have been removed. If we look across the shoreline, there's a noticeable difference in the density of the forest. I believe Muskoka Lake should not allow property owners to build first without a permit or minor variance approval and ask for forgiveness later. I believe this non-compliant. Please find 2 photographs and a survey map from the district of Muskoka. These photos illustrate the extent this construct has removed living trees, damaged and injured growing living trees, and destroyed the shoreline vegetation. It appears that a virgin forest have been destroyed to build this deck without proper permits or minor variance application. Tree stumps, tree limb removal, and shoreline vegetation removal are visible. Silver Lake is at threshold. The shoreline vegetation helps to protect the health of the lake waters. Species at risk may be encountered in the area. The Ministry of the Environment, Conservation, and Parks should be consulted to ensure any proposed development will not have any adverse impacts on the SAR or SAR habitat. Given the applicant's statutory obligations under the Endangered Species Act 2007, an evaluation of potential habitat of endangered and threatened species and impacts must be completed. If the committee decides to consider this application further, information is needed. 1, a survey that indicates the high water mark. 2, an environmental assessment to be performed by the township at the owner's expense. 3, a complete arborist report with a detailed set of reforestation drawings included. And 4, a species at risk report. It is my belief that this application does not meet the 3 of the 4 tests to approve a minor variance application. 1, this application is not appropriate use of land. The land prior to the construction of this unpermitted and non-conforming deck was heavily forested and had full undergrowth. Silver Lake is at threat. A clear lake view is detrimental to the lake health. This land should not be used as a deck, and the surrounding land should not be deforested. The land should be brought back to its original use to help protect the environment. 2, this application is not keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The 4 exterior corners of the deck do not meet the 50-foot setback requirement of the Township of Muskoka Lake zoning bylaw. The 50-foot setback is in place to filter water runoff to the lake and to protect the environment from light and sound pollution. There is now an issue with light and sound pollution from this property because of the removed and destruction of much of the flora that would protect the environment from this pollution. This application is not keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan. This application is in direct contradiction of the Township of Muskoka Lake's official plan adopted by council on October 12, 2022 by bylaw 2022-171, and then approved with modifications by district council on November 20th, 2023 states. Part E, waterfront area E1 objectives. It is the objective of this plan to A, protect the ecological functions of lakes, rivers, and shorelines. B, ensure the protection of areas and ensure that the natural landscape predominates the human-built form in the waterfront area. C, protect the integrity of the natural landscape, including but not limited to tree cover, tree lines, natural vegetation, natural heritage features, and the areas and naturally exposed bedrock. D, protect the natural environment, including wetland areas, shorelines, and other water resources in order to protect the resilience and integrity of ecosystems. I, maintain and enhance a high standards of recreational water quality and establish limits of growth where necessary to ensure that the ecological functions of the water bodies are managed for long-term sustainability purposes. Official plans policies speak to the importance of shoreline buffers. Official plan policy I-6H subsection 2 states that the vegetative buffer shall stretch across the entire water frontage of existing lots. Section 5.1.9G of the Township zoning bylaw states that within the front yard area, an area of land 50 feet wide and running parallel to the high water mark shall contain a shoreline buffer. Official plan policy I-6H subsection I explains that the role of naturally vegetated shorelines in buffering water bodies from erosion, siltation, and nutrient migration adjacent to the sensitive littoral zone is critical to the protection of water quality. Preservation and restoration of shoreline buffers is therefore required. Policy I-6H subsection 3 further states that where reconstruction is proposed on an existing lot, the shoreline buffer as it exists shall be protected and improved to the extent feasible. This application should be refused and the very least be deferred until the necessary additional information is received and reviewed. Respectfully yours, Daniel Borenstein.
Okay, is that what you think?
Yeah, thank you very much. I guess my only question after hearing that is staff's comment with respect to the measurements relative to the high water mark or the current water mark. Does that have any relevance on any of this?
Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I would note, look, the property fronts onto Silver Lake and the water levels aren't controlled by a dam. And I would note that the submitted site plan is a surveyor's real property report. There's limited here in Port Carling. Staff don't have any concerns with respect to the distinction between present water's edge and high water mark in this case. It does happen from time to time where the terms are used interchangeably. If the property fronted onto a water body such as, say, the Indian River, where water levels are known to fluctuate, determining that water's edge, sometimes it's referred to as a regulated water's edge in that instance. But in this case, as I've said, I don't have any concerns with respect to how it's been identified and measured. Thank you.
Recommendation tends to the vegetation and plantings and shoreline buffer, so I think that's fine.
Okay, and just let the minutes show that the letter was received and read in full. Any other questions or comments? By Member Brown, second by Member Grogan Green, be it resolved that minor variance A 7524 Weber to recognize an as-built sun deck is hereby approved with the following variance being granted to permit a front yard setback of 34 feet at the closest point for a sun deck. This variance is granted as shown on a plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition. 1, to the satisfying title, along with securities for retention of existing vegetation and plantings to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. These variants are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Do we not ask? Okay, is there anyone else here to speak in support of this in opposition? Okay, okay. I've read the all those in favor. That's carried. Okay, and we have some unfinished business, and that's A 1424 ML Little. That's Ms. Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. In June of 2024, Committee of Adjustment approved consent severance application B 1424 ML in the name of Little. As the applicants of the application were in the process of fulfilling conditions of their consent, it was discovered that condition VI would necessitate that the applicants enter into a site plan agreement prior to finalizing the creation of the severed lot. As the development envelope had not been flagged at the time of staff's site visit and owing to on-site conditions, staff recommended that site plan control be imposed to ensure that any future development is appropriately situated on the lot. As such, condition VI agreement for the severed lot be entered into and registered on title, along with any necessary securities for the retention of vegetation and any necessary plantings to maintain the roadside vegetative buffer and to ensure appropriate development on the severed lot. To allow for the finalization of the severance in a timely manner before detailed development plans may be completed, and to bring the conditions of the application in line with staff's standard approach, staff are recommending that the provisional approval of consent application B 1424 ML Little be amended by replacing condition 6 with the following: that the severed lot be made subject to site plan control. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak on this application, either for or against? Any questions from the members?
Just to make sure I understand, this is just a timing issue. That's all this is that correct?
Through you, Chair Allen, to committee. It was just a clerical error, so we have just adjusted it accordingly.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Moved by Member Stokes, second by Member Bridgman, be it resolved that professional approval of consent application B 1424 ML Little be amended and replaced by the following condition 6 with the following: that a separate lot be made subject to site plan control. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. And since there's no other business, moved by member, yes, go ahead.
Chair Edwards, just for next month, it's November 11th that we are here. I would like to attend the ceremony here in Port Carling at 11 o'clock. So I don't know whether we could pause for half an hour. I just thought I'd give some.
I'm sure we can do that. I would like to go as well, so we'll pause at 11 o'clock. Or talk fast in the morning and get through at 10:45 like now.
Thank you.
And moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Bridgman. Be it resolved, the meeting hereby adjourns at 10:38 a.m. All those in favor? That's carried.